South African apartheid regime had many allies too, and people were constantly calling Nelson Mandela a terrorist. Now the same people who used to call Nelson Mandela a terrorist say he's the great hero. But I remember them calling him a terrorist in the 1970s and 80s. I remember that distinctly. The same people, like Margaret Thatcher, who is now dead, but others, they were saying, oh, the terrorists. Then suddenly, oh, the great freedom fighters. Suddenly they changed over. Well, as they saw the tide of public opinion changing. So I think that must be something that we should also work for, to change the tide, to get a tide of public opinion going, to change the mood of public opinion, to convince the world that yeah, some action must be taken. So after a certain while, it's more difficult for governments to tell a majority of their people that we don't want to listen to you. They can tell a minority of people we don't want to listen to you, but when it starts to be a majority, it becomes at least more difficult. Even if they can do it for a while and try to do it, eventually it becomes very difficult.
Right. And so, Mr. Larudi, I mean, movements like yours, the Free Palestine movement, how much have they been able to cause awareness and change the public opinion mood?
Well, it's been slow, but there are, compared to 15 years ago, there are a lot more people involved in the movement. And I think actually, from what I'm hearing in the press, the Western press in the US, it's not good. It's nothing like what we hear on Press TV, but it's moving, and there are journalists who are angry and who are saying things that you don't often hear. So as depressing as the news is, they're slowly breaking through. And the concern that Israel has about so-called delegitimization is valid. I think that's exactly what's happening. And they're moving as fast as they can to complete the ethnic cleansing project in Palestine before the entire world opinion turns against them. But I think it is coming. The question is, you know, these things change when they reach a tipping point. They change suddenly. This is what happened with apartheid, for example, and Vietnam in the United States as well. I don't know how close we are to that tipping point. It could happen this year. It could happen 10 years from now. It could happen 50 years from now. Our movement, the Free Palestine movement, the International Solidarity movement, and many others, the Return to Palestine movement, and so forth. These all we play our part, and we work together at times, and we work separately at times. I did want to say that I'm not very optimistic about what can happen in the United Nations. Let's remember that less than a month ago, Israel was named the co-chair of the UN Special Committee on Decolonization. Decolonization? And Israel is elected to the co-chair with they got 70 votes or something like that from different countries. This is not the Security Council. It's not subject to veto. And yet they were elected by these countries because these countries have been co-opted.
So Paul Larudi, I mean, so long as you have a veto-wielding power like the United States at the UN Security Council, can we have any resolution passed against Israel that can be implemented?
I would not expect very much. It's all very good for the General Assembly, if possible, to pass a resolution against Israel, and maybe a very mild resolution that blames both parties, Hamas and Israel, can be passed in the Security Council with the abstention of the United States or something like that. That's the most we can hope for. But as far as movement, I really don't think the United Nations is going to help very much.
Right, Hamid Ghofiran Tehran, let's pick up on what Paul Larudi said about some journalists in the West getting angry about this. We've seen that some journalists from mainstream media, like NBC, like CNN, have been taken off the air for their comments and reporting about killing of civilians in Gaza by Israel, comments both on the air and off the air. I mean, how much has this had an impact on the public opinion?
Well, I don't know how much it's going to have a great impact, but it has to have some impact to a certain way. Although at the same rate, some of these
At least doesn't it show the duplicity of these stations?
Yeah, well, it also shows like they're trying to do a certain media spin and make those people look bad. And even some of those remarks were off the air, so are off officially not like whatever, were not official remarks, whatever in their media. But the point of the matter is that people are hearing these remarks, and a lot of people, I think, do agree with it in the general public around the world. Maybe not everybody, maybe not enough people that it should be to get some stuff done and happening, but it is a certain amount of people are hearing these things, and they do agree with them. They do agree with them, at least a certain number of the people, and it has a certain influence too. Maybe some people would be against them, but at the same rate, some people who maybe are kind of in between might think for a minute, like how come these guys or female women are making these remarks that seem to be kind of strong, and what is it about? Why are they saying that? So if it even brings something into the debate, it's a good idea in a way, and it's good for the Palestine movement. Although all of us here and everywhere else have to do more, but every little bit counts, I believe.
Indeed. And of course, Mr. Paul O'Rudy, how much can we expect from the Arab League, the Arab states, the Palestinians' fellow countrymen?
I can answer that in one word: nothing, zero. They are puppets of the West and the United States. They're going to do nothing. So, but as a matter of fact, the only nation in the world that can change things is the United States. If all the world is against Israel and the United States is with Israel, Israel will survive. If all the world is with Israel and the United States is against Israel, Israel will go down. So that's the whole story, beginning to end. Now, but the question is, does the United States support Israel, or is Israel running the United States? Only at the beginning of the invasion, there was a vote in the US Senate. The Senate has 2 senators for every state, 50 states, that's 100 senators. The vote to approve the Israeli invasion of Gaza was 100-0. Nobody abstained, nobody was absent, nobody voted present. They voted yes, every last one of them. Why? Because they depend upon Israel to get elected in their states. You cannot, there is no national politician that can say anything against Israel. And that's because Israel has a political machine in the United States that controls them from the beginning of the career until they're at the end of their career. The United States is a colony of Israel. Both Palestine and the United States are under Israeli occupation. This situation has to change. Now, it may change from the people of the United States when they get fed up with this, when they realize what's going on. This is what can change things. But everything depends on this country, the United States, what happens here.
Right. And the final word by you, Mr. Goldpira, picking on the last comments by Paul O'Rudy about the United States being the most effective part in this whole conflict. I mean, if it weren't for the support of the United States and, of course, several other countries, for how long could Israel continue with such atrocities and continue to exist?
I was at 99% agree with the guest that, if all the world was against and the U.S. supported Israel, there would be a problem. But I think, no, if all the world was against Israel except Israel and the U.S. and the U.S. and the United States was remaining, I think there would be a problem for the United States, even how powerful they are. And also I wanted to say I agree that the Zionist lobby, the Israeli lobby, does control much of the or almost all of the political workings in the United States. But personally, I don't think that the United States is a colony of Israel. Personally, I think Israel and the United States are both colonies of certain other forces. For example, the people who own the Federal Reserve Bank, the National Bank of the United States, actually, so in my view, the United States and Israel are both colonies of this other group that you pretty much don't hear about so much, but they are actually having a great amount of power.
All right, we'll leave it there for the time being. Many thanks to Hamid Goldpira, journalist and political commentator, joining us in the studio from Tehran, and Paul Larudi with the Free Palestine Movement, joining us from San Francisco via Skype. Thanks to you both, gentlemen, for your thoughts and opinions about the situation going on in Gaza. As of now, it's day 15 of the Israeli onslaught on Gaza. So far, 630 people have been killed in Gaza. 3,700 have been injured as a result of this 15-day Israeli onslaught on the Gaza Strip. More details on our website, thepresstv.com. In around 5 minutes' time, I'll be back with the international headlines. Don't go away.